you doing? Hey, hey. Hey, how you doing? Nick, nice to meet you. That's a good turnout.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. How are you today? Thank you for coming on Saturday. It's very appreciated, actually. Today we will have something interesting about traveling and adventures, landscape and travel photography. That's what we will learn from Nick Arundel today. Our lecture here will be around 2.5 hours, and as usual, the lecture is live streamed on YouTube. If you think that some of your friends or families didn't make it to come today, please send them the link on HIPAA YouTube channel. Please remember your registration number to make it easy for us to get your certificate fast. And don't leave after the lecture today. You will be our judges for Instagram People Choice. Thank you very much and have a nice lecture.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? My name's Nick. Thanks for popping along. So yes, for the next couple of hours, we'll be talking about travel and landscape photography. If you want to see any of my work, basically www.naturalphotographyelite.com is my company. And on Insta is Natural Photography Elite. Okay? Throughout the talk, if anyone's got any questions, just put their hands up and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. There's a number of photos that I'm going to be going through, giving you the settings, how I come about to take those pictures, and how I've built basically a career in travel and landscape photography. Okay. So, the itinerary this afternoon, I'm going to give a quick introduction on how I got into photography. I went traveling for 15 months on a world trip. We're going to start with my top 10 photos from that trip, tips and tricks, an introduction to the Canon mirrorless EOS RP, which I now use when I travel, a bit about HDR and bracketing, which I use quite a lot, accessories that I've got in my camera bag that I take with me. This year I went to Sri Lanka for the Sri Lankan Tourist Board, so there's a number of photos there that I took that I want to run through with you. Also within the last 2 months I went to Mauritius for a hotel brand here and how I took pictures for them, and their pictures are up in the new hotel in Mauritius, and then we'll end on an open forum and any questions. But as I said, going through, if anyone wants to put their hands up, we can have an open forum as we go. Okay. About me, I'm a freelance photographer here in Dubai. I also do a bit of video. 39 years old from the UK. Worked in IT in London till 3.5 years ago. Very minimal experience in photography. Only used a camera a few times, okay? Like I say, based in London, did IT, and in April 2016, I quit London, quit IT, and wanted to take a career in photography, okay? And the way I basically thought I could do that by basically building a portfolio with having no clients behind me was to go traveling, which I sold everything I owned and went traveling for 15 months around the world, a full circumference, something like 28 countries. It was an amazing experience. Moved to Dubai in 2018, where I set up Natural Photography Elite. I shoot interiors, all sorts of other genres, but the photography, the travel and landscape is the passion, okay? And in 2019, I become a brand ambassador for Canon as I head up their junior academy. So I do lots of teaching in schools as well, okay? So that's a little bit about me. And this is where I went around the world, which I've just explained, okay? What I want to point out for this first part, okay, is the equipment that I used for that first part of my travel and landscape tour. The pictures that you're going to see, you're going to go, wow, they're amazing. but they were taken on a 700D Canon, not a DSLR, all full framed, just your basic entry-level camera with kit lens, 70 to 300 for long exposure, and a Manfrotto lightweight travel tripod. So that literally was my kit as I went round. There was nothing too expensive, and the point I want to try to make is the pictures, the photos that you produce are not all about the equipment. It's about the composite, it's about the rule of thirds and your general photography rules that bring the best pictures for you, okay? So, I'm going to run through my top 10 photos that I shot on my trip. This is the first one, okay? This was shot in Bolivia, in the salt flats, okay? What you'll see on every photo that I'm going to show you, it gives you the settings of the photo and a little description about the photo. So this was taken around about 8 o'clock in the evening during sunset, which is what we have got here with the Milky Way. Now, the ISO settings here was 1600, f4.5, and it was on a long shutter speed of 30 seconds, okay? It is a little bit grainy, as you can see, which is why the ISO was set to 1600. Now, really, when you're shooting long exposures, you really want to be ISO 100, okay? The higher ISO that you get during the evening, when you're doing night photography, the more noise and grain that you get in the photo. But this photo means a lot to me. It symbolises my journey on my trip around the world, which is me standing alone under the Milky Way. And because where I was at this time, sometimes when you're doing travel and landscape photography, you have to improvise. The camera here wasn't on a tripod, okay? It was on a chair. So I basically put it on a chair, steadied it up, put the remote timer on it, set it, went and stood in front of the camera, and after 10 seconds, the camera went off and shot for 30 seconds. I had to stand very, very still for 30 seconds, so there was no movement in that photo, okay? So with 30 seconds, it got the light of the photo for me, but I pushed the ISO up to 1600 just to get a little bit more. Okay. Any questions on that photo at all? No? Cool. Yep. Yeah. ISO really, when you're doing night photography, needs to be really 100. Whenever I do long exposures now, wherever I am in Dubai, ISO 100. I always try to underexpose my photos because in Lightroom or Photoshop you can bring the shadows up and down the exposure, okay? The higher the ISO, the more grain, the more light. If you're overexposed in your photo, it's very hard to darken the photo. If the photo's dark and it's underexposed, it's easier to brighten it up with no grain or noise pollution, okay? Machu Picchu in Peru. Okay, this was taken very early on in the morning, 9 a.m. Very cloudy day, ISO 100, f8, because I wanted to get the majority of the picture in focus, okay? Shot at 1/60th of a second. One of the things you have to understand with travel and landscape photography, I'd built this picture up in my head. I'd seen it on Instagram for a year, building up to traveling to this destination. And every picture that you see, it's all clear, blue skies, and I wanted to turn up and take that picture that was clear again, very blue skies, and how I imagined it to be. One of the things you have to understand with travel and landscape photography, not every photo that you turn up to is going to be what you've seen previously, whether it would be on the websites, Instagram, just purely because it's travel, the weather. If you're taking sunsets or sunrises, the sun might not come up, it might be cloudy, and you just have to be prepared what you get on the day. But this, it was cloudy, it kind of sets the scene, it was what I saw on the day, and it's a little bit different from all the other pictures that you see of Machu Picchu, okay? So, a little bit what I did in Lightroom, this was a little bit overexposed, so in Lightroom you just bring out the clouds, darken it down, so it just basically a bit of contrast, so it just pops the photo out a little. Okay, any questions?
Actually, in this picture, where you focus
So my focus was literally right in the middle here, the middle, which is why I had it on f8, because I wanted to get as much as the focal in sharpness, in focal plane, yeah? So I shot right in the middle there to get the rest of it in focus. No, automatic focus. Yep, so I used my focal point on the screen, set it to be right in the middle, and so, yeah, you understand? Yeah, yeah?
Actually, okay, doesn't the camera actually go to infinite focus with something that this size, you know, like everything in focus regardless of what ISO you're shooting?
Yeah, on the focal plane, whatever's on the focal plane. So this will be in focus if you had it on a low f-stop number, but I wanted to get as much as this. Remember, this, again, isn't full framed. I'm traveling with an entry-level camera.
An APS-C, right?
Yeah. So you're trying to do the best with what you've got. So, like I say, this bit is more on the same focal plane, but I wanted to get this in focus, okay? Lake Tekabo, New Zealand. The best sunrise I've ever seen, okay? And again, this is very impromptu. I was sitting there having breakfast, waiting for a taxi to turn up, looked outside and just see this amazing red and orange skies coming over the mountains. And it was one of them moments where, where's the camera? I need to go and get the camera quickly. So I literally left my breakfast, run and got my tripod, went and got my camera and literally shot down to the lake. Freezing cold, I think it was about -2 or 3 degrees, but got this amazing, amazing sunrise, okay? So again, 100, okay? That should be 30 seconds, not 1/30. It was long exposure, and it was shot at f4. Yeah, so basically, the reflections, so the composite of this is basically the rule of thirds. Does everyone know what the rule of thirds is? Yeah? If anyone doesn't, just basically, I'm trying to basically get the water as 1/3. The middle third is the mounting and the sky as the top third. So trying to use the rule of thirds and try to get there before these ducks come over and made all the water a little bit splashy. So yeah, that basically pulled that shot at 30 seconds long exposure. So as you can see with lots of my pictures, I was just explaining it there, most of my pictures, where they're sunrises, sunsets, nighttime photos, I'm always shooting or trying to shoot at 100. Because within editing, you can basically down the exposure, down your highlights and up your shadows. If you overexpose, it's very hard to drag that back and make the picture neutral. So I'm always trying to underexpose and then in editing, pull the exposure back up with the shadows. Okay? Any questions on this photo? This f-stop. So the f-stop basically, depending on, you've got ISO 100, depending on what your shutter speed is, okay? If you're opening it wide because you're going -30, determines really on what my f-stop is. So if I need to give it a bit more, if I need to give it more light, I'll keep it low. If I need to give it a bit more darkness, I'll try to up the shutter, the f-stop, the aperture, okay? So it all depends what's going on in the light. This here is very much on the same focal plane, okay? So it's the low f-stop's basically going to keep most of that in focus.
Actually, I have a question there. The orange, is it edited or like it was in like the orange?
This, if I'm being honest, I literally probably 10% changed the colours of the orange. I felt, to be honest, I felt if I changed it too much, it was going against the photo because it was as it is. Sometimes you can bring out the vibrance and the saturation, and it wasn't telling the story of the photo. So yeah, there was a kind of just a touch, 10% probably, to bring out the oranges and the reds, but that was exactly how I saw it, near enough basically, which is why, yeah, it's the best sunrise I've ever seen. It was amazing. So yeah, it was a great photo. Okay, New York. shot from a helicopter. Shot from a helicopter with no doors. If anyone ever goes to New York, you can actually sit on the side and panic and scream like I did. Good job there's no audio on this photo because I'm screaming away. But yeah, up on we went round. It was sunset. But this is just a great composition photo. There's something going on, rule of thirds and the composition itself. So we've got the boat down here. We've got your eyes being centered to the Freedom Tower, and then we've got the sky at the top. As you can see, this was shot at 6:40, and it was because we were going along in a helicopter. It needs to be quick, because if I do it any slower than this, this will be all grainy and movement within the photo. So it had to be at a high shutter speed. Reason why I put a little bit more ISO on it, and the f-stop number was lower to give me a little bit of light. Okay. Now, I've gone black and white for this photo because the sunset wasn't that great. The buildings are very white and grey, and it's a very flat, dull photo. If I left that in colour, it doesn't really tell a story. So I've moved it to black and white, put the contrast up a little bit so you can see the buildings, put a little bit more exposure on the boat coming out of the ferry terminal there, and it just basically feels a lot better than having a dull colour photo. So just a rule of thumb, if you look at your photo and it's very dull, very flat, doesn't matter whether you try to bring up the vibrance, saturation, try to give it a bit of colour and it's still not popping to you, try it in black and white and have a play around, because you can definitely try and pull the towers and the contrast out in the photo in black and white for you to give it a bit more depth. And that's what I try to do in this photo here. Okay. Any questions about black and white? Or
Which lens was
this was the I used I think it's the 300mm, the long lens.
that comes with the aperture of?
Yeah, it goes down to I think it goes down to 3 when you're on the lowest setting. Okay. So yeah, this was on the long lens up in the helicopter. Okay, this is near the Caribbean. So this is out in South America. Again, I was just walking along the beach on my own on this tiny little island in the middle of in the Caribbean, and I just saw this composition as I was walking along with my eyes, and I thought that is a perfect picture to capture. So we've got the tree up here, we've got the hats, we've got the boat tied up, we've got the island, and we've got the boat. It's all about the composition in this photo. If we was to cut this here, or we was to cut here, or cut half the boat off, you're basically not getting the full composition. Your eyes basically, as soon as I open this photo up, it goes to the boat. That's what I see first. And then your eyes are going round the photo, looking at what else was in the photo. And like I say, if you don't get the right framing, if I was to cut half the boat off here, it doesn't look right. If I was to cut half the tree off, or the hats aren't in there, it doesn't bring the photo together. Okay? So again, another thing with travel photography, it's all about keeping your eyes looking for different views, different heights, and just keeping aware of what's going around you and what's going to look good in the framing. And this was certainly one of those pictures. Like I say, I was just walking along the beach on my own, and I saw this, and I just thought that would make a great photo.
What's the height?
Height was about here, handheld. Again, f11. It was a very bright day, as you can see. So the ISO was down, f-stop was high, and 320 on the shutter speed. At this point, for this, no filters at all. This first part of that trip, all that was in my bag was what I showed you at the beginning: the 2 lenses, the camera, and the tripod. Okay.
Kit lens, nonetheless.
Yeah, the kit lens. No, not great. But as you can, look, if I was to do that trip again, now, my bag would be like this. But I was just, 3.5, 4 years ago, it was just a case of I wanted to vlog and blog what I was doing on my trip, and my budget wasn't that great. So it was just a case of walking into the camera store in London and going, what can I get? What does it mean? I'm traveling, I need something light. As you can imagine, 2 bags and 3 bags when you're traveling every day is quite a lot. So I just wanted an entry-level camera that could basically do a few bits. And obviously, as I learned over the 15 months with the camera, I realised that then to take my pictures to the next level, I needed the better camera better megapixels and stuff within the camera. But like I say, no filters at all on this at the moment, and we'll come to that as we go further on. So this is back in the UK, where I live, just down, it was about, it's an hour outside London, and these are the beach huts down on the seafront, and the sunset, was amazing that night. So yes, there is a little bit of editing up here to bring the oranges and the reds out, but I wanted to get the framing correct on here, and the beach huts are very much, for me, the focal point of this picture, and then you see the sunrise behind. Okay. I set myself up for this photo. I tried to do 2 or 3 photos along this hill, and I couldn't get the right framing because of the sunset being over here. And then I found this as a leading line, starting in the foreground, was great to then lead into the beach huts and the sunset. So again, rule of thirds. We've got a nice foreground here with a leading line. We've got another leading line with the beach huts, and then we've got the sky with the sunset. Okay. Any questions at all on this photo? Cool. So this one was in New Zealand, called Franz Josef, okay? And this photo is all about scale, okay? Without these houses here, we don't know how big that glacier is. It could be this big, this big, this big. We don't know on the photo. So the real importance of this photo is the house, so we get the scale of the glacier, okay? Now, I took this photo, 100, 250, 6.3. It was very dark, okay, and I had to pull everything out in Lightroom just to basically give you a little bit more highlights here and the shadows. But like I say, the scale of the house here is basically what makes this photo, gives the depth of the photo is the house, because you look at the house and go, wow, look how big the scale of the glacier is. Okay, again, because it's light, ISO 100, yeah? Always trying to keep your ISO as low as you possibly can to keep the noise pollution out of the photo. Cambodia, sunset, okay? Again, had to improvise. I went on a day trip out to this little island. We were on the island. This sunset appeared. I didn't have a tripod, so I had to put loads of rocks together to put the camera on to steady it, because it's at 1/4 of a second. And obviously at that speed, any movement in my hand, we're going to shake and get movement in the picture. So I could have just taken a picture of the sky, but the boats give the photo depth. You kind of get that. It was in Cambodia, in Southeast Asia. The boats give it that Asia feel. It gives it a meaning to the photo. You know, lots of photos that you see of just the sea and the sky doesn't really tell a story. I'm trying to tell a story with the boats being in the photo. So it just gives you a kind of a feeling of where you are in the world when this picture was taken. Okay. Dubai. So on my way back, from going right the way to the other side of the world, coming all the way back, I stopped off here, and I wanted to find an angle of the Burj Al Arab that I hadn't taken before from being on Kite Beach or Princess Beach along here. So I was in this restaurant, and I come to the back, and I wanted to capture the framing of the Burj with the sunset behind, and I kind of really like these palm trees being stuck in the photo because it gives it extra depth on the right hand side. So we've got the foreground being here, the Burj being the main focal point with the sunset behind, and then we have the trees on the right hand side. I had a question the other day and said to me, why didn't we try and put the trees on the left hand side as well to make it a bit symmetry? And it would have just made the photo, there would have been too much going on within the photo. You would have looked at the photo and yes, you would have seen the Burj Al Arab, but it would have just been too much going on. Your eyes wouldn't know where to look. And it would have just basically made the Burj not stand out with the sun behind it. So you have to be careful when you're taking these pictures that there isn't too much going on in the photo, that your eyes don't get distracted to the actual focal point of what the story is. And the story is in this photo, it's the Burj Al Arab at sunset. Okay, any questions? Cool. Okay, and the last but not least for these 10 photos is Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. Okay, one of the things that I've learnt travelling, you've got to be prepared to put in the hard yards to get the photo that you want. And everyone loves to get the high perspective of any city, whether it's Dubai or Rio here, for instance, where we've got Christ the Redeemer, Sugarloaf Mountain, Copacabana Beach. And to get to there, it was an hour in 35, 40 degrees, climbing up the mountain to get this shot. So it can be painful sometimes to get that shot that you want that makes everyone go, wow. But you've got to be prepared to put in the hard yards to get those photos. Okay? Again, had no tripod because I was climbing. So 250, F10 to make the photo more darker, so it didn't have too much light, but the ISO was set to 100. Okay? Focal point here was the lake. Eyes go to the lake and then you kind of look elsewhere and what's going on. So that was kind of the idea behind this photo. How much editing on this one? There would have been a gradient on the sky, so I would have done Lightroom gradient there. I would have probably put a circle gradient around the islands to try and pull that out. The yellows probably would a little bit. The greens here, just to pull the greens out. And the highlights would have been down and the shadows would have been upped. Okay? So yeah, there is a little bit of editing on this photo. Any questions? Cool. Okay. So this is just a quick video on the mirrorless Canon that I'm now starting to use. And in April, Canon give me it, and I happened to go out in Dubai over 4 or 5 locations where we just made a little video. Hi guys, how are we doing? The last couple of weeks I've been playing with the Canon EOS RP mirrorless. We've been going to a few destinations around Dubai and we've been taking lots and lots and lots of pictures with the camera. Cool, so for my travels now, okay, I'm using the Canon mirrorless, purely because of its weight. So with other genres of photography in Dubai, I use the Canon 5D Mark IV, but for travel, it's easier to put in my suitcase, to my travel bag, to get around. And yeah, to be honest, it's the weight is the biggest thing. Okay, the Canon's quite big, the Canon 5D. It helps. It's good for interiors and events, but for travel, it's light and the megapixels is very, very good. So yeah, the next batch of photos is what you've just seen on the video, and yeah, I'll just talk through those photos with what I took with the Canon. So the EOS RP, it's a 26.2 megaframe sensor. It shoots 4K and full HD video. This is a big plus. It's a flip-out LCD screen. Okay, so on the back, if we go back here, on the back, one of the things that the 5D Canon hasn't got is the flip-out screen. So if you're trying to get down low to shoot, or you're on a little tripod, you literally have to get down to see the screen. Whereas this has got a nice little flip-out, so you can see what you're taking. The weight, 485 grams, including the battery and the SD card. The new focus bracketing option within the menu in the Canon, so we will focus on this a little bit later. The servo autofocus, face tracking with eye autofocus, and if you have any existing lens within the Canon range, you also get the R-mount adapter that allows you to put those lenses on the new Canon RP. Okay, so the first destination we went to was Sharjah. Okay, ISO 100, f/16, 250. So this photo was literally black, dark when I took this photo. In Lightroom, I've pulled it up. Okay. It was very, very bright, as you can imagine. The light was coming over, and I basically wanted to do a silhouette photo. If I would have taken these settings down any further, the photo would have just been overexposed. Okay. As you can see on this photo, it's got a vignetting. Okay. When I look at this photo straight on, I want you to look straight at this building with the sun coming through. So the reason why I've darkened the photo is because I want you to look straight into the middle of that photo, because that's where the sun is and that's where the silhouette of the building is. Okay, we had a bit of mist in here, so I would have put a gradient, circle gradient in there, put a bit more dehaze, just to simulate that there's mist in the photo. Okay, now with this photo, I used an app called Photo Pills. Okay, it's a very good application. Has everyone heard of Photo Pills? Yeah. Photo Pills is an app. I think it costs around between $5 and $10 on the App Store or Google Play, and it allows you to see where the sunrise, sunset, or where the moon is going to rise in the sky, and it allows you to position yourself so you can get the shot that you want where the sun's going to be. So I used the Photo Pills, and I knew exactly where that sun was going to appear with that application. Okay, so rather than turning up to the location and spending 20 minutes, oh, is the sun going to come here? Is the sun going to come there? For $5 to $10, you can purchase that app, and you can set yourself in the perfect spot straight away. So that's a real handy tip and trick, is to get that app. Okay, this was also in Sharjah, and these were the guys, these were the fishermen going out to collect the fish, and I basically set myself up in between these two boats, and we've got leading lines of the boats looking into the middle of the sea. Without that boat and a centre subject, you wouldn't really be telling a story within this photo. There's nothing in the middle of this photo. Having the boat there, the guy at the front looking out, with the boats doing the leading lines, your focus straight away goes onto the boat. okay? I've darkened here at the front, the gradient, to push your eyes into the center of the photo. Any questions? No? Cool. The Shangri-La Hotel, one of the most famous spots within Dubai. Everyone loves to go to the Shangri-La to get these photos, okay? The whole point of a night shoot up there is to get the long exposure of the cars, okay? So as we can see here, ISO 100 again, 15 seconds, okay? Long exposure, and so that I could get 15 seconds and it's not too bright, I had to put the aperture at f16, okay? So these are the why we get the light trails of the cars going up Sheikh Zayed Road, okay? Is everyone fully aware of long exposure? Does everyone know? Yeah? Anyone who doesn't know, put up their hand. Okay, cool. Yeah, any questions on that photo? No, so it's all manual. So it's basically you're turning up, you're taking test shots. So when I turn up and I've got it on a tripod, because obviously we're shooting on long exposure, it's test shots. I'm never going to get this shot correct on the first time I'm going to shoot. So I may have well have put this to 30 seconds because I know I want long exposure. So I may have put it to 30 seconds, and I may have put this to f.8, shot for 30 seconds, and it was pure light, brightness. There's nothing in the picture at all. So right, okay, what do I need to do? I need to come down on the shutter speed. I'll try 15 seconds at f8. Okay, no, it's still bright. I'll try and bring down the shutter speed to 3 or 4 seconds. Okay, it's too dark now, but I'm losing the light trails of the cars. So I'll take the shutter speed back up to 15 seconds, but to give it underexposed, I need to take the f-stop number up, and then I would have just played with the f-stop number until I got what I felt was the perfect, or certainly the near perfect photo to edit in Lightroom. So it's very much a, you know, you're never going to turn up as a photographer, you're never going to turn up, and if you do, great, take that first shot and it's amazing. It's about doing test shots and figuring out what are the best settings to get the shot that you need.
Composition-wise, why the bird is not there?
Okay, so the bird is not there because on the next picture the bird is, but the bird isn't there is because I wanted the focal of this picture is the light trails on the cars. If the Burj Khalifa's there, you're going to literally focus straight on the Burj Khalifa rather than this. What I'm trying to tell a story in this picture is the light trails and how quickly the car's going through. So that's why this photo was cut without the Burj Khalifa in it. Okay, if we come to the next one, which I just literally moved the camera to there on the tripod. This is what we get from the Shangri-La. Okay, so yeah, it tells its own story. The middle focus is the Burj Khalifa. We've got the show going on here with the lights and the buildings around it, and we've got the road here. Okay, so the long exposure was 5 seconds on this one. I didn't need the 15 seconds because the cars are not in. I wasn't focusing on the cars, so I could just drop it down 10 seconds, and this is what photo we got. And all I've probably done here is just pull the yellows out and change the oranges a little bit, just to bring those out. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is out in the desert, fossil rock, and this is where I talk about HDR photography. Okay, so this photo is 5 photos put together. Okay, so when I come to shoot this photo in the desert, you're never going to be able to expose this correctly and the foreground correctly. If you expose the sky correctly, this would be too dark. And if you exposed the desert correctly, this wouldn't be exposed properly. This would be too light, okay? So what I did here with the tripod, okay, is take 5 different pictures at 5 different exposure time, f-stop numbers, okay? So I would have taken one f9, f11, f16, f18, f22, literally the full range from f9 to f22, and then in Lightroom, I would have stitched them together. Now, on the next slide, it's not the same photo, but this was in Mauritius a couple of months ago, and this is kind of the same explanation as the picture before. If I took this picture at f9, you can see the sky is completely blown out, okay? And it would have been the same in the desert. If I had taken the picture of the desert without the sky, this is what the sky would have looked like, completely blown out. If I'd have done it the other way round, where I would have got the sky correct, but the picture, it would just be completely black, okay? So what I've done is what we call bracketing, or HDR, F9, F11, F14, F18, F22. In Lightroom, okay, I uploaded these 5 files to Lightroom, all in RAW format. Scroll down on photo, you click all 5 photos and you edit and merge in HDR. It takes a few seconds and it basically merges the photo into one and produces another photo in RAW format for you to edit, okay? So this is the photo that it's come out on, okay? Yes, I did do a little bit more editing on top of it, but fundamentally you can see that you can see the clouds now, and the foreground is now in the right exposure, okay? So this is exactly the same format that I did for this photo, okay? I just stitched them all together and played with the settings. Again, the reason why I went black and white, without the black clouds, and it's a very grey day, the photo didn't have any meaning, didn't have a story to it. So I just wanted to basically, if you put it into black and white and monochrome, you kind of give the photo depth, especially the clouds and the sun rays coming out, okay? So again, another tip, like I said before, if the photo comes out very dull and you're trying to put colour into it, have a go on black and white to see if you can give it more contrast and a bit more depth. Any questions on HDR?
What time of the day do you suggest is best for this kind of photo?
Any time, because the whole point of HDR is that you can basically shoot at any time. So you're just going to basically play with your shutter speed, because you're on a tripod, okay? I can do long exposure. I can bring the shutter speed down as slow as you want, because there's nothing in that photo. There's no movement in that photo at all. So I can bring the shutter speed down as low as I want, keep the f-stop at 9 to start with, but you can come down as far as you want, and then you just basically take your f-stop numbers up. So it can be done at any time of the day, okay? Because the shutter speed is what's bringing you the light in, and because there's no movement, you can just bring it down as low as you want, okay?
Why didn't you do it in camera?
It's just the way that I do it. I know the camera does the bracketing, but I know that this works for me. Okay, I do all my interior work like this. So when I do hotels interiors, home interiors, I shoot with long exposure, but I HDR bracket in Lightroom and stitch them together. Okay, so for instance, if you're in a hotel room, or if you see in a brochure and you're in a hotel, that picture that you're seeing out the window isn't the picture that they've taken when they've took the picture of inside the hotel or inside the room that you're staying in. You know, you always see the picture of the Burj Al Arab or the Burj Khalifa outside a hotel room. That picture isn't the picture that has been taken when they've shot the picture inside the hotel room. It's been cut out and layered, because outside the window would be too overexposed if you shot it. So you have to expose and it's exactly the same process as this. So the Burj Khalifa would be outside the window. I would take a picture of that and then just Photoshop and cut it in. So it's the same process, but that's what I'm happy to do it out of the camera because I know that's the way I've been doing it. But it can be done in the camera, yeah. Okay, cool. So this was out in fossil rock, okay. Yeah, so, yeah, 100 F8 640. This was round about, well, this is a composite, okay? So this is 2 photos, okay? This was cut out. This is the sunset from the same day, but it was kind of over here. This was just basically orange and grey, and I just thought it'd be nice to add the sun in that rule of thirds. So one of the things that you have to remember when you're doing Photoshop or Lightroom and cutting something into the photo is you must make the colour gradient the same, okay? So when I cut this sun in, this was still very grey, okay? It didn't match what the sun was in the photo. So I just basically, in Photoshop, you just add an orange gradient into the stone there, just to give it that orange feel, and that the photo works with the colours, okay? Uh-oh. It's on the thing, but it's not on there. Where's our man? Ah. Here we go. Okay. So yeah, so basically sunset colour grading is important when you're editing, and just giving that feel that you're, that the sun matches the rest of the landscape. Is there any questions on that photo?
Are you standing on the ground?
Me, yeah, I'm in a... There we go. So yeah, I'm in one of these sand pits here, just standing and capturing.
Slightly on top, right?
Just slightly on top, yeah.
Actually, if you didn't tell us it was composited, I would actually not believe you.
Yeah?
Like, it's actually too real to actually be composited.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. That's nice, positive feedback. So that's the whole idea in the photo, is that you don't want to make this, and it was. If I was to show you the picture when I put the sun in, this was grey, so it looks well out of sync. So the whole idea when you're adding something to the photo, you have to make sure that the gradient, the colour gradient, it matches. Otherwise, it looks photoshopped.
For this type of shot, do you usually use like a wide angle or a telephoto?
No, I use the 24 to 105, and I use 70 to 200. So the only 3 lenses that I only have in my kit bag, which I'll come to in a bit, I use the wide-angled 11 to 22, the 24 to 105, and the 70 to 200. And that basically covers me for everything, whether it's my interior work, event work, or travel and landscape photography.
So did you use the same lens for both the photos that you took?
For this one, yes, yeah. This was literally, the camera was on a tripod there, and I just moved it and up a little bit over here with no rock to capture the sun, because it wasn't in the right spot. If I could have moved the sun over, I would have. Yeah. So yeah, the aquarium, nice fun spot, the Atlantis. Again, I said to you before, patience is a virtue for a photographer, and this took me about an hour and 20 minutes, because as you can imagine, there was everyone and no one in this picture, and every time, he's a friend of mine, and every time I got him to stand there, someone then come and stood here, someone come and stood there. Then you get him alone and he's fine, but there's no fish, there's no one here. So you're like, and then eventually you get the shot, which you're really happy with. And we got, yeah, like I say, the shot, the focal here, I put a gradient on the floor, okay? So your eyes automatically should be pushed up to him. There's the nice gradient at the top to produce the light, so it looks like the fish, nice in the aquarium. But the story of this photo is him looking up at the fish. So your eyes automatically get drawn into him with the nice shadow, and then he's looking up at the fish. Okay, so that's the story of the photo. But as I say, patience. It can wear thin. Start shouting at people to get out of the way, and eventually you get the shot. Okay. This one as well. So I pushed the ISO up on this one because it was really, really dark in there. And if I hadn't have pushed it up, it doesn't matter what I would have gone to here, it would have just been a flat photo. So I've pushed the ISO up to 800, and then I've kind of waited for the shark to come in. I put a little bit more editing in the water to give it that, like the water's being pumped up, and give it a really big contrast, bit more of a contrast to basically push the shark into the frame. Hang on. Okay. Guys, we're just going to have a break for 10 minutes. Okay? Anyone needs to use the loo, and we will reconvene. The time is now coming up to 6. We'll reconvene at 10 past. Is it 10 past? 6:15. Okay? we go. Welcome back, everyone. Okay. Everyone had a drink, something to eat? Ready for part two. Is there any questions at this moment about what we've just seen that anyone would like to ask? No? Perfect. Okay. So, the next location I visited, Dubai Miracle Garden. Okay. Has everyone been to Dubai Miracle Garden? The place in Dubai where there's a plane with flowers on. I don't think you'd find that anywhere else in the world. Okay. So, the whole idea of this photo, sunset. I wanted the glare of the sun coming through with the plane. As you can see with the settings, 3.5, this is why my focus point was on the nose of the plane. This is why we're getting a blur down here. And then we've got a blur on the foreground. So again, I'm trying to get you to focus in on the plane as the subject. And then we've got the nice colours here on the left. Rule of thirds, instead of being this way, rule of thirds is going down here. So the plane in the middle. Okay? Again, aperture 3.5, 3.5. These elephants are on the same focal plane, so they're staying in focus, but we've got the blurriness of the photos down in the foreground. Rule of thirds, again, basically with the elephants being the focal point within the photo. Okay, ISO 100, shot at 160. Okay, and then I've added a bit of vibrance, a bit of green to push the elephants out. Okay. Composition on this photo is you want to be dead center in the middle of the first elephant, and then the other two elephants fit on the side. Composition is important. If we had this photo here and it wasn't symmetrical, so the middle elephant's in the middle, the photo looks odd. Okay, so that's what you're trying to get with the composition. The elephant, the main subject, is in the middle. This is from the Burj Khalifa. Okay, it helps to have that tiny mirrorless camera because on the floor 125 you get about that much room to take the picture between the glass. And this is what I got. It was sunrise. Like I say, it wasn't a very good sunrise. So the reason why I've gone black and white again on this photo is to make sure that we can get the surrounding areas. The contrast gets brought out. Okay, the main focus is this building in the middle. And if I was to give you the colour version, it would just be too grey, too dull, hence the reason why it's gone black and white. Shot at 160 and f-stop 4. Any questions so far?
Why did that fall? Is that the focus
So, yeah, f4. So I think it was just due to the light, basically. It wasn't to do anything with the photo itself. It was just to basically get. So there wasn't, because this was shot at like 6:30 in the morning. There was no light at all. So I needed to get a little bit of light in there, because like I say, I always try to keep ISO 100.
You're not going to ISO all 200?
I try not to. The rule of thumb is 100. Okay. Yeah, 32,000, 64. No. I work best with ISO 100. That really is a tip from me, guys. Is a lot of my photos are done with 100 because we want it nice and sharp. We don't want any noise in the photo.
Why not use a flash?
Well, this building is about 200 meters away from me. So if you can get a flash with that building, can you tell me where I can get a flash? It's never going to reach there. If the subject was here, then yeah, I'd use a flash, but you're never going to get a flash for that distance. This was on the other side of the Burj. Not particularly a great sunrise, but the leading line of the lake pushed you into where Dubai Creek Harbour is. and then we've got the clouds at the top. Okay. 100 again. 7.1. White? No, 24 to 105 on here. So 24 to 105. The kit lens on the EOS.
Yeah, where's the location of this?
Burj Khalifa.
And is that the Dubai portion outside?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, you've only got this much to get your camera through. Yeah, there's not really too much going on this photo, if I'm being honest. But it's something that I had to showcase with the camera from the Burj Khalifa. But to make something of the photo, I've kept the lake in here. Rather than just focusing on this, the leading line of the lake pushes you into the buildings, and then we've got the sun behind.
Probably a few years from now.
Few years from now, when that building is up here, you won't even see the sun.
It's all around it.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be everything going on. It'll be one of those before and after photos. I'll be able to use this in about 10 years' time. Okay, so next part is what I carry now in my bag for my photo missions. Okay, so Manfrotto carbon fiber tripod, nice and light. Okay, 2 cameras, the EOS RP and the 5D Mark IV, the 11 to 22 wide angle, the 24 to 105, the kit lens, 70 to 200 mm, the long lens, and now, different from when I started my travels, I carry ND filters. So neutral density filters allows me to shoot long exposure during the day, okay? Or allows me to, when we're doing sunsets or sunrises, to be able to keep the long exposure longer when the light starts to get brighter, okay? So I carry a gradient, and I'll show you in a minute what a gradient ND filter is. It's where it's darker at the top and lighter at the bottom because the sky is at the top. So we want the sky to be darker because it's where the light's coming from, but we want the foreground to be of the same color, or the same light, sorry. A 3-stop, a 6-stop, a 10-stop. The ones that I've got are magnetic, so you can actually just stick them on. So if I put a 10-stop on and I feel like it needs another 3-stop, I can put the 3-stop on over the top, and then it will make it a 13-stop. So in theory, when I add all these up, I've got 19 stops on me, okay? If you want to work out the long exposure time of the ND filters, if you go back to PhotoPills, the app, so the way you work out your long exposure time, if you take a photo of how it's supposed to be at the exact same time, so F9, shot at 160, ISO 100, that's your perfect photo for that time of day. If in the PhotoPills app you put that in, tell it that you want to put a 10-stop filter on, it will tell you how long exposure you can put on your camera to get the perfect photo. Okay? So the app tells you how long you can open up your shutter speed if your perfect picture was those settings at that time in the day. Okay? L bracket. Okay? It's something that I've been using now for the last 6 months, and because of Instagram, everything needs to be shot in portrait. So my brand on Instagram, to make sure that I get the most amount of the space on Instagram, rather than shooting in landscape and cropping it in Lightroom, I now use the L bracket so I can get portrait on my tripod. The way it works, if you don't know, it's an L bracket, okay? And your camera fits on the L bracket, and you can basically turn, rather than moving the tripod, if you've got a 3-way pan, so if this is landscape, you can turn the tripod and it goes like that, so you're shooting in portrait. The problem being is the cameras, most cameras are heavy. So what happens is it starts to slip, okay? And you don't get a proper picture in portrait. It starts moving. If you're trying to do long exposure and it starts to move, you'll get movement within the photo. So with an L bracket, you literally can just take it off and switch it with the without even moving the tripod head. Okay, they're very, very cheap. If you go onto Amazon, you can pick them up for very, very cheap. And I can't go anywhere in the world now without that L bracket, because it's quick. When you need to be quick and you want to change and things are happening, sunsets, sunrises during the day, it's very quick and you think, oh, that's going to be great for Instagram. It's very quick to just clip it and put it and start shooting again. Whereas if you've got it on a tripod, you've got to move it, make sure it's in the right spot. If it's falling, tighten it back up. So it's very handy to have a thing called an L bracket. Remote shutter, okay? So that's something that basically plugs into your camera and you can press the button and it takes the shutter speed. A lot of the manufacturers now have an app that goes on the phone, okay? Canon have a Canon Connect where you can GPS or Wi-Fi to the camera and you can actually physically see what you're shooting on the camera. You can change all of the settings on the camera via the app, and you don't have to change it on the camera itself. Very good for long exposures, because if you're pressing the app, you're not actually touching the camera. There's no movement in the camera. So again, this is another little tip for me, is to try and get, whether it be a remote shutter, like something, it's like this, that has a cable that goes into the camera, or the application that fits the product that you've got. It's definitely worth having. And a drone, okay? Very hard to fly in Dubai because everywhere needs a permit, but it's taken my landscape photography to the next level. It's amazing the photos that you can get from up above. You know, photography in a camera, photography in the drone is exactly the same philosophy, okay? It's got shutter speed, it's got ISO, it's got aperture, and you're just basically using the same method, but it's up in the sky. I've also got ND filters for it as well, so if I want to do long exposure, I'm trying to capture waterfall that's 100 meters away, I can also put ND filters onto it to capture the long exposure of the waterfall that's 100 meters away, okay? I've got a Mavic Pro 2.
The one that can you draw? All drones draw. Some of them just shoot JPEG.
No, this shoots the RAW. Yeah, it does RAW. Yeah, and 4K. Okay. So the issue here in Dubai, you need a permit. So you go and license the drone. You have to do a little exam. They put a serial number on it. The problem is they tell you cannot fly it near a helipad, an airport, which is basically the whole of Dubai. You're never further than 1 kilometre away from a helipad on top of a hotel. So the drone can be used out in the desert, or you kind of just have to be quick up and down with it before anyone notices it. This is streaming live today. Oh God, I haven't got a drone. Sorry. Okay, so ND filters. Okay, so this picture basically symbolises what I've got that fits on top of my camera. Okay, it's dark at the top, light at the bottom. You can see what it's trying to do with the picture. It's darkening the sky. Okay, so all you're doing with these ND filters is basically cutting out a majority of the editing that you do in Lightroom. Because again, in Lightroom, I can just add a gradient, okay, that would do that, but it's in post-processing. This is taking that element out. You'll get a better photo, basically, more sharp photo by having the ND filter or the gradient filter. These are the 3, 6, and 10 stop filters. Like I said, magnetic, they just fit on top of each other. And like I said, if you don't know what ND filters is, it stops the light coming into the camera, okay? So like I said before, the best way of doing it is shooting the photo properly that you want to capture. Even if it's a waterfall, you want to capture that waterfall as in perfect daylight, so the water won't be silky, won't be smooth, but you're capturing the photo with the correct settings. You put the correct settings into the PhotoPills app, and it will tell you, if you want to put a 16:10 3-stop filter on, it will tell you what you can bring your shutter speed down to without it going too bright and overexposing the photo. Okay. This is the L bracket. You put the camera on here, and you literally screw it in, but you can just flip it backwards and forwards on the tripod head. Okay. Like I say, this, if I was to tell you one of the best thing that I've bought in the last 6 months that has helped me, it's this, and it's very, very cheap. Huh? Cheap, you can get it cheaper than that. You can get it cheaper. So 60 dirhams, chap standing down at the front, but it can be actually cheaper than that. The remote shutter, like I say, wired, or you can get the app that basically connects to the phone via wireless. Okay, so you've heard about me, how I've started the journey, traveling the world, moving to Dubai, and waiting for an opportunity or an experience where a brand or a company reaches out to you and wants to pay for your work, traveling and doing landscape photography. And this summer, after 18 months of really hard work in Dubai, trying to do as much as I possibly can, knocking on doors, working for cheap, working for free, I finally basically get my not a lucky break because I'd worked hard for it, but I got a phone call from the Sri Lankan Tourist Board where they wanted to take me across Sri Lanka for 6 weeks and take me to areas within Sri Lanka that hadn't been touched, and they wanted to promote those areas. So they've had some issues over there at the beginning of the year. People stopped going, and they wanted to use their social media to basically promote Sri Lanka again. So I was lucky enough to be called. Have you got anything going on over the summer? No, I've got nothing. I'll come. So off I went, okay? So a few of these pictures are with the drone because they wanted a lot of the pictures from the area above. And this was in an area called Arundel Bay, okay, which is on the east coast of Sri Lanka. And they wanted pictures. They'd given me an idea. They wanted pictures around locals and what it would be like if you come here and it's surfing season. And yeah, so I had a number of photos of this area, and I picked this one. The sunrise was over here somewhere. I could have moved round and got the sunrise in, but I like the idea that you see the sun rays. You get the light coming from here, so you know where the sun is, but you've got the nice beach here, you've got the locals, these fishermen have just been out, and you get the nice greenery of Sri Lanka. It was rainy, kind of rainy season there, so it's green. Everywhere you go in Sri Lanka is really nice and green. So that's the idea around the composition. Like I say, we could have got the sun in here, but I felt it wasn't needed because we've got the sun coming from the left-hand side there. And again, it wasn't this pink, it wasn't this red. That's been pulled out in Lightroom to give it a bit more of a wow factor. But it certainly was a sunrise that had a bit of colour in it, but I've just pulled more colours out. Okay? This is sunrise. Okay? Like I say, the Mavic Pro shoots in RAW. So if you're shooting, you should really be shooting in RAW. Okay? So what RAW gives you is more information within the file. Okay? So if you're shooting JPEG, again, not a problem. It can give you enough information to do a little bit of editing with to produce the photos that you want. But if you want to take your photos to the next level and start being able to manipulate the photos to the way you want, i.e. changing colours, you need more information in the photo. You need to be shooting in RAW. Okay? The EOS RP, the file size, you're looking between about 40 and 60 meg per image. If you was doing JPEG, you're looking at around about 10 meg. So you can understand the more information in the raw file will allow you to manipulate the photo as you require. For instance, if I wanted to change this photo and this green to be red, I could, because I can manipulate that because the information is in the photo. If I was shooting in JPEG, it wouldn't give me that. It wouldn't give me enough information within the photo to be able to do that. So, to edit better and take your edit to the next level, you need to be shooting in RAW. Okay? Is there any questions with that on RAW? Kelvin, yeah. So again, I try and shoot. So the question was around about Kelvin. What Kelvin am I using, or auto white balance? I use Kelvin for this. For when I know there's going to be lots of oranges and yellows, and I love oranges and yellows for sunrise, I'd probably be setting my Kelvin to about 5,500, if not higher. Okay, because I'm always going to, in Lightroom, I'm always going to push the yellows up anyway. If I can do it in before the picture's taken, it just makes the photo, gives the photo a bit more, and I can do a bit more edit in Lightroom.
Any issues taking the drone in the country, or no, because it was tourism?
So I did get caught by the police, but because, well, so because I was working for the Sri Lankan Tourist Board, I kind of had, you know, carte blanche to use the drone. You go to places where there's more tourists. They don't care. They want to showcase. It's like anything. They want you to showcase Sri Lanka. They've gone through a dip because of the issues they had there at the beginning of the year. They want you to use social media, take the pictures, get as much out there as possible. You go inland to where the locals are and you put a drone up. Obviously, they had issues with the drone because that's what caused some of the issues out there. So they were pretty nervous. And obviously, I was out in the middle of a rice field, paddy field. There was no one. I thought, this is great. I can put the picture up. I wanted a picture, a cinematic picture where I was driving through the rice fields, no one about, and like I say, took the picture, and the next thing I know, the police there was a rice farmer about 3 kilometres away that obviously saw me driving through with the drone, got scared and called them through, and then I just rung the tourist board and got let off. But yeah, you kind of have to be discreet, yeah, with it. So, it's this famous sun again that I used in one of the other pictures. Okay, as you can see, it kind of works well with the colour. If you're trying to make the colour and the gradient orange and pink, it works well with this kind of scenery. So this was a pano in the drone. Again, 4 o'clock in the morning, wake up. You're like, oh, what am I doing? I don't really want to get up. But if you want to take these pictures and you want sunrise, you've got to be getting up early to take them. So the town of Ella in Sri Lanka is about 4 or 5 kilometres this way. We trekked all the way up. I'm somewhere here, standing here, and this was sunrise. So this is Ella Rock. This is Little Adams Peak, quite famous in Sri Lanka. And I've added the sunset or sunrise in there just to give it a little bit more power, because the sunrise that day was all grey and nothing up there, okay? So it was just dull, so I needed to add something there. 125 of a second, ISO 100, 6.3, and yeah, it's basically within the Mavic Pro, the drone, it stitches 32 photos together. So whereas before, when you saw me do the HDR, I had to do it in Lightroom, the camera on the Mavic Pro actually does it for you. So when you take the photo out of the SD card, this is what you get, but there is a folder beside it that basically gives you 32 pictures of where it's taken, okay, like this. So you can actually manipulate every single picture if you want, but it actually produces one big picture for you, okay? This was my favorite one that I took. They're using it on their website for the Sri Lankan Tourist Board, and they've actually bought the rights to this photo off me. So I can't actually sell this photo anymore because they've bought it off, they've bought the rights for me. Okay, HDR on this photo. This is called Coconut Hill, okay? I've done very well to get to not let anybody get in the photo, because this is the #1 Instagram spot within Sri Lanka. Everyone loves to stand there and give it the old, just here, holding hands, couples, kissing, and so forth. So again, to get the sunset and the colours, I kind of had to shoot dark here on F9, and then basically F22 to basically get the rest of it together, push them all together. Now you can see there is movement. It was a very, very, very windy day. When you put the photos together in Lightroom, in HDR, it has an option called Ghost, and what it tries to do is it tries to match all 5 photos and give you the best photo out of the 5 that it can produce. Now, because this tree and this tree and this tree would have been moving in all 5 photos, it's the reason why you've still got a little bit of movement in there, because it wouldn't have been able to do one still photo because the leaves would have been moving in all 5 photos. But it's done a pretty good job. You get the idea of the palm trees, and the focal point being the sunset behind, and the colours being drawn out. Okay. There was a gradient, circle gradient put on that pulled the oranges out. I would have put a bit of dehaze on it as well, just to give the clouds a bit of darkness, and basically framed it that this palm tree was right in the middle. So that's the centre, okay? I think it would have been odd if that palm tree wasn't in the centre and this wasn't right in the middle, okay? Any questions? Whiskey Point, sunrise, okay? 30 seconds, F18, ISO 100. Gradient filter on. I think I had a 3-stop ND filter as well, and I positioned myself right in front of the rocks and waited for the sea to come in, which gives you the nice silky sea coming in on a 30-second long exposure. Okay, I've put a vignetting on this photo. I want your eyes to go into this spot. Okay, this is nice. This gives you a nice feel, but I want your eyes. This is the photo here. Okay, so by putting the vignetting on the photo, makes your eyes going straight into the centre of the photo. Firstly, you see the sun, and then you see this lovely silky white sea coming in. Is there any questions on that photo? Yeah? Okay, cool. Mauritius, okay. So this is, I got asked by Le Méridien, hotel brand here in Dubai, to go over to Mauritius and shoot for their new refurbished hotel. So they wanted 150 photos of Mauritius, the island, and they took me all around the island to take photos of this marvellous, wonderful island, and the pictures would be on in the refurbished hotel. So this was one of my favourite ones, framing-wise, on the island. Okay, so we've got the boats, we've got the colours. Okay, I haven't done a lot to the colours at all because that's actually what it's like in Mauritius. That's the colour of the sea. We've got a nice foreground, nice colourful foreground, the red and the yellow. Okay, and then we've got the tree on the right-hand side, just taking the eye movement up onto the right-hand side. But your main focus is the boats. Then we've got the foreground, and it's all about the framing, a frame within a frame. So we've got the boats in a nice frame from the landscape. Okay, gradient filter was used for the sky. Okay, because it was very bright during the day. As you can see, I shot at 250 and f9, and I still used a gradient filter for the sky. Okay, all about trying to find subjects for your photos. Okay, this is still a great photo without the windsurfer in, but I had to have something. I needed a subject within the photo for the eyes to basically push themselves on. Now, like I say, if that was the framing, still great, still a nice picture. You would have had the house, island, the sea, and the sky in. But the wow factor here is the windsurfer and the colour of the sea, the turquoise sea. So again, the composition, we've got the rule of thirds here. We've got the surfer, we've got the island with the house on it, and then we've got the sea, and your eyes then get drawn to this island that is inhabitable, but people go there for the day to do windsurfing and beach activities. So kind of a tip from me, guys, is you've got to find a subject, something that's like a wow factor within the photo. Like I say, without that windsurfer, the photo's still good, but the windsurfer makes you go, right, okay, what's going on? Oh, look, he's windsurfing, and then your eyes basically go around the rest of the photo, but you initially get drawn to the windsurfer. Okay, so try to get a subject in your photo. So this one, okay, literally just happened out of the blue. I was walking along the beach, and I saw this father and his son playing on the jetty, and there was some rocks just down here that I was taking pictures of. I was trying to get long exposure, and then they sat down and they were looking out, and I just thought, wow, what an amazing picture. So the framing of this, okay, it's cropped. The framing went out a little bit. There was a bit more of the jetty. But when I got it into post and I saw we only really need this part, that's basically, this is our main subject. This is quite a nice added feature on the side. And they're just sat there talking. I put a circle gradient on them, so they're a little bit whiter here. So our eyes go into those. Put a little bit of magenta and blue into the sky and a bit of turquoise down here. And there was a couple of other people in the photo here that I got rid of. Okay? But yeah, I took the clarity down on this photo as well. Okay? So it makes the sky more wispy, like a dream. And that's what I wanted this photo to symbolize, that it's like a dream, father talking to his son. Yeah, I think I'd name this photo, the meaning of life, son, is ... And they're just talking. Yeah, you're in a dream. So, is there any questions on this photo?
So you actually use a selective tool to actually select the shine or something?
Yeah, so in Lightroom, I just did there's a circle gradient. Yeah, so I basically pulled the dimmed the exposure on the outside. So you can see here, look, it's darker. And the whole reason you do that on a circle gradient is because you've got a subject in your photo that you want everyone to focus in on. You want the photo to be dark around the outside and focus on the subject in the photo. So it's the gradient, the circle gradient is here, bit darker, less clarity, bit of magenta, and then you're getting the dreamy kind of feel of the photo. Okay. So one of the things that I love, okay, about leading lines is that it guides your eyes to where it needs to go, okay? Most landscape photographers love leading lines, whether it's windy and it's leading you to somewhere, whether it's on a river or, water that's got something that basically leads your eyes to where the photo needs to go. So I originally took this photo quite high up, and it wasn't low enough for your eyes to capture the railings. So I brought it right down as low as the tripod can go. I then had a couple of stones, boulders here, which were too much in the photo. Your eyes were basically going here before you could see anything else. So I got rid of those. I went a little bit further to where the water was coming in, and yeah, basically shot this sunset where your eyes are being pushed right into the center with the boats and then up to these lovely colors coming from the sunset. And again, we don't need the sun in it because we know where it's coming from. We're getting the light from the sun coming here on the left. And yeah, just basically pushing you into the boat. So again, another tip is leading lines. Always try to find, if you can, leading lines to push you into where you want the photo to go. And this is exactly what these railings do. Pushes you into the centre of the photo. Oh look, there's boats there, and then look at the lovely colourful clouds in the sky. No, just one photo. Okay, shot with a gradient. There would have been, I think I shot this with, it was f11 anyway, 3 seconds, and then I put a 6 stop on this one. So this was about 20 minutes, 25 minutes before sunset went down, but I wanted to give it the feel that it was dark and moody, but there was the red in the clouds, and a little bit of long exposure of the water coming in. So just the one photo. Okay, so one of the other things I want to talk to you about is Instagram and trying to build your brand as a travel or landscape photographer. Okay, so up until Christmas last year, I kind of put everything on Instagram that I was doing in photography. So whether it be food, interiors, travel, it was all there to see. All my work was under Natural Photography Elite, which was fine. Okay, people went on there and you could see I was doing headshots, interiors, but I wasn't getting the work that I wanted, and the work that I wanted was in travel and landscape photography. So guys, what I seriously recommend is if you want to basically, I know a lot of you are amateurs, but if you're trying to basically build a portfolio, or you're trying to build yourself to try and get into the professional game, you need to basically brand Instagram. I've got a website. Most of my clients now, it's somewhere where I can push clients to see some of my work, but they straight away go to Instagram. Okay, they want to see what you're like before your website. So a few Instagram tips, like I've said before. Number one, shoot in portrait. Okay, I know we're all landscape photographers. For me, it's been really, really hard because I like shooting in landscape. But if I want to get more out of my photos, I try and shoot in portrait. Try to get rid of anything on your Instagram that doesn't fit what the brand you're trying to sell or trying to show clients or your friends or family. Hashtags, try to put your hashtags in there. Try to keep them unique. Try to put 20 to 25 hashtags in there. Because Instagram basically are, what's the word? They're not allowing you to reach as many people as you were 18 months to 2 years ago. Okay? So it's harder to build an Instagram brand now than it was 18 months, 2 years, 3 years ago. You used to pick up followers all the time. Okay? It's harder now. So you're kind of working harder in the market. So you want to kind of build your brand, keep your hashtags, and grow organically. As soon as you start putting auto bots or trying to get other computer systems to upload your photos, Instagram recognize it and they restrict your reach out to people. So when you don't get disheartened when you have a look at big Instagrammers here in Dubai that have been going 10 years, that have got 70,000 Instagram followers, because they grew that 10 years ago and they've built it. If you're starting from now, it's going to be a slow process because your organic reach is very minute. Instagram want you to pay to basically promote your pictures now. They want you to sponsor it, and then you get a bigger reach. So Instagram want money for that. So hence the reason why they're slimming your reach when you're posting. Okay. So yeah, is there any questions? That's we've come to an end with the photos and some tips. Is there any questions that you want to ask me? Everyone's all gone quiet.
I already have too many questions.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you become a Canon ambassador?
Me.
Yeah.
So, if I'm being honest, I kept knocking on their door. I literally kept emailing. I kept writing to them. I kept ringing up. Basically, to the point where they got annoyed that they had to have a look at my work. And then, yeah. So again, I think I said to you this before in the interval. If you want something, guys, you've got to knock on the door and you just got to keep pursuing where you want to go. Okay, things are just not going to come to you. You've got to drive. You've got to have, you've got to have your own drive. My drive is to be paid to go all around the world to take these kind of pictures. That's where I want to be. Now, to do that, you need to basically knock on the doors of people that can do this for you. And Canon, I thought, if I can get in with Canon, it's a great exposure for me. Okay, not that there's any paid work from it, but there's exposure from Canon. If you're being backed by a brand, whether it's Canon, Mavic, Nikon, whoever, it's going to give you, it's going to open doors for you. And so that's what I did. I just emailed them constantly for about 4 months at the beginning of the year, to the point where they rang me back and said, could we have your portfolio? Could we see your work? And within 2 weeks, I was in for a meeting, and we've just gone from there, basically. So your work's still got to live up to Canon, measurements of what Canon need, but sometimes you just need to let them know that you're here rather than them trying to find you. Any other questions? No?
Why did you leave IT?
I wanted to get out of the 9-to-5 corporate environment. I wanted to be my own boss. So I lived about an hour and a half outside London.
To the unknown.
To the unknown, yeah. I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I was in a job that I'd done for 15 years, a very, very, very good job. Got to travel around the world. I headed up a team of 30 engineers. I was in a very, very good job. But one day I woke up and I just thought, where am I going? I'm 35, 36. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to have control of my destiny, what I want to do. And I want to do something that I enjoy rather than just turning up and doing the job. So I was in a lucky enough position that I could quit my job, had a little bit of savings, okay? Like I said, I sold my house, sold my car, literally sold everything that I'd ever earned in 20 years to have a budget to go around the world and try and take these pictures that would then give me a chance to basically get in the market where clients could pay for me then to carry on traveling, which is what I love doing, and taking photographs, which is just a bonus on top of it. So yeah, that's why I just got stale in my job that I did, and I wanted to do something new. Anything else? Over.
So how competitive now that you're here and like
Yeah.
knocking on doors and everything? I mean, there's so many travel and adventure photographers all around the world that already have like
Yeah.
goodwill with certain
For sure.
brands. So how hard is it to penetrate in that new?
It's very hard. So I think I was telling someone again in the interval, Dubai per capita has got more photographers than anywhere else in the world. Okay, so everyone's a photographer in Dubai. Okay, that unfortunately that's the way it is. All of them, yeah, we're all here, and all of different levels, but everyone says they're a photographer. So it's very hard to penetrate the market. And like I say, I can give you 2 years worth of experience of. You've got to do a number of work. If you want to do it professionally, you're going to have to basically build your clientele. So if you can do that while you're earning, while you're at your job, brilliant. If not, you're going to have to be prepared to take jobs on a very low budget for free, which the market, if you talk to any other photographer, is horrendous because you're basically strangling the market. If you're doing it for free, there's another photographer who's losing that job that would charge X amount of dirhams to do it. So it's not very well liked among the marketplace to be taking jobs for free or very low budget. But at the end of the day, how is that new photographer ever going to get any new clients if one, he hasn't got a back portfolio, and two, he's up against someone that has been here for 5 years and clients already know him. So for the first year, I literally worked for nothing, just knocked on doors, can I shoot for you, can I do this, can I do that? And now, a year later, I'm getting those same clients coming back to me because they know me now and they know my work. They're now paying the rate within the marketplace to pay me. So you've got to basically put yourself out there. You know, again, I said this to you before, nothing's going to come to you. You need to go, if you're walking past, I don't know, you're in City Walk and there's millions of restaurants there. Why can't you just walk into a restaurant and say, can I take a few pictures of your dinners or, you know, your food? Or taking pictures, going out into the desert, taking some pictures and sending it off to a travel company here. You know, 9 times out of 10, they're probably not going to read it. But if you do what I did to Canon and you just persist persist, 10 emails a week, till they have enough of you that finally they will come back to you. It might take 2, 3, 4 months, but you just need to keep knocking at those doors. And then once your name starts to become within the marketplace, it's very quick before you go from there to there. That's not a slow process. It's about getting your name into the marketplace. Once you're there, you'll start to get job offers coming quite regularly. It's just that first process to get it done.
I guess just to add to that, so you do need to sort of create a base for you in a city. You cannot be traveling non-stop and then finding work along the way. Is that also something?
Oh, yeah. I think you need to base yourself, and Dubai is perfect. You know, we're right in the middle of. If I want to get into Europe, yeah, I want to get out to Bali, Philippines, Sri Lanka. It's perfect base. To try and start a business while you're traveling, it's a headache. It really is. So yeah, keep a base. Any other? Oh, yeah.
What would be your favorite 3 spots in Dubai planning?
I like the desert because it's close to where I live, so I only have to drive 5 minutes to it. But that's nice going out to the desert, especially for sunset. The canal, sunrise, beautiful down there. If you get the right time of year, the sun literally just comes right behind the Burj Khalifa. So I think you're looking around at September, October time. The sun literally comes up right behind the Burj. And where else? Oh, I like the creek. I like down by the creek. That's really nice down there as well. Not a lot of people go down there, and it's really nice down by the creek to get your sun. I'm a sunset and sunrise chaser. I always have been. So I like my sunsets down there.
But, I mean, have I noticed that there are lesser locations for sunrises in Dubai, sunsets are more locations?
Yeah, you keep going back to the same spot. You just keep trying to have to do a different angle of the same spot. That's the other thing with Instagram. Wherever you go in the world now, the picture's been taken, unfortunately. So creative minds have to come when you go to that location, is to try and get a unique shot, a unique angle, something different that someone else hasn't done. So that's where the creative mind of a photographer needs to come in. But yeah, those are my 3.
Burj Khalifa, it felt like I saw this photo more than once.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was
look,
common.
most people are going to take it. Burj Khalifa, Burj Al Arab, Atlantis. Unfortunately, they're the 3 biggest. You just got to try and find unique ways of taking the picture.
Wait, Imar. What about Imar? Like, is it hard to get the photos for Imar? Imar.
Yeah.
Settings,
Right, so yeah, it's very hard to get the permits for the rooftops. Otherwise, we'd all be doing it. The Shangri-La Hotel, they charge you now. So that's 250 dirhams for an hour at the top there. Yeah. And because they just had people coming in and getting in the lifts and going to the top. And then someone thought smart, hang on a minute, if this is a tourist spot, we'll just start charging them. So, I heard stories before I come that you used to be able to pay the security guards to get to the top of these buildings, but obviously that's now stopped. So unless, again, there's a couple of guys in Dubai that have kind of got that market, they're in with Emar. So they've kind of got that market sorted. They just ring up, they get the rooftop place, but they're taking them pictures that no one else can take. So they've got very unique pictures within Dubai from the rooftops that no one else can take. So they're lucky. They're lucky guys. Anyone else? Everett?
Do you recommend creating multiple profiles on Instagram for different brands?
You can, but you probably need to employ a full-time person to keep it going because it's tough. I've tried doing it every morning. So what I try to do, and again with Instagram, you need to be consistent, okay? So the way the algorithm works when it's Instagram is the more you push out and the more you like people's photos and the more you comment, Instagram give you a bigger, more reach. 2, 3, 4 years ago, you could sit there dormant, not put any photos out for a week, and Instagram would still allow you to put your photos out and be seen. They don't want dormant accounts. They want people to be constantly publicising their photos. So, yes, you can do for each of your individual photography, But if it takes you 20 minutes to publish one photo, if you've got 4 accounts, you're going to be sitting there in the morning for an hour and a half, which, I mean, you can, I even heard stories recently that if they notice, so if you copy and paste, so a lot of the stuff that I do, I copy and paste a lot of my hashtags into Instagram, so it doesn't take me 15 minutes to hashtag each photo. Their algorithm is noticing that you're using the same hashtags. They see you as an Autobot, shadow blind you basically, so they don't push you out to the reach that you need. So you've got to kind of mix up your hashtags every photo that you do. Otherwise, they think you're a computer just pushing. Because there are applications here where you could go on, say Sunday night, you go on and spend 2 hours putting all your photos in for the week, putting all your hashtags, and then you can time it to set what time you want to be publishing your photos. But like I say, if it sees you with the same hashtags and you're publishing at the same time every day, their algorithm thinks you're an Autobot and will basically shadow blind you and not push you out. So like I say, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to sponsor every single photo so you get a bigger reach, they get bigger income. And I heard within the next 2 to 2.5 years, Instagram will be a paid subscription. Yeah. So it's getting harder on Instagram. Any other questions? Okay, I think we're all good. We're all done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think this lecture was very inspiring, especially with this nice weather now. You can go out and take some nice travel photos. Okay, now it's time.